Welcome to the Migraine Miracle Moment. I'm your host, Dr. Josh Turknet. I'm a neurologist, migraine specialist, migraine sufferer, and author of the book, The Migraine Miracle. In this podcast, you'll learn all about how to find your path to migraine freedom without pills. Let's get started. All right, welcome to another episode of The Miracle Moment. So on today's episode, I'm going to be sharing with you another Migraine Miracle Story. This one coming from Jan Richards. And Jan is one of our Migraine Neverland members. And as you'll soon hear, she's coming to us all the way from Australia. And she first discovered the Migraine Miracle by reading the book and then ultimately joining our Migraine Neverland membership. And as you'll soon hear, she's completely turned her life around in several ways. And you can just hear the joy that's in her voice. It's still incredible and a bit magical for me to think that just by putting words on a page, someone's life halfway around the world can be transformed like this. But it just shows how valuable and precious good ideas are and how important it is to do whatever it takes to keep sharing and spreading those ideas. And I'm certain that someone out there is going to hear Jan's story today and will be inspired and motivated to take action so that they can then experience the same sort of transformation that she has. Also, I know that I talk about how valuable these success stories are to those of you listening for inspiring and motivating you to make big changes in your life. But I should also add that these stories are also extremely valuable to me as well, and they inspire and motivate us to keep trying to get the message of the Migraine Miracle out into the world. Anytime you put yourself out there, whether it's in the form of a book or a podcast or a blog post, whenever you release something like that out in the world, you're almost guaranteed to invite some criticism and haters, especially some of the topics that I cover in the book and here on the podcast. Nutrition, for one, as I'm sure you know, and as Jan will talk about in her interview, can get people really fired up. In fact, it's oftentimes surprising just how controversial a topic it can be. But also spreading the message that drugs may not be the best solution for migraines is not one that some folks want to hear. Or the idea that we as migraineurs have the power to influence the course of our condition and aren't just the victim of unlucky genetics that we're powerless over is another message that's sometimes not openly received. So I get plenty of negativity directed my way, and of course, like I said, that's bound to happen anytime you put yourself out there. But nonetheless, negativity is no fun. I'm just as human as everyone else, and like every other human, I'm a bit predisposed towards taking the negativity harder than the positive feedback. Additionally, as you'll hear Jan speak about, you'll likely encounter some of this yourself if you make changes to your diet and lifestyle. And especially if you try to share your thoughts on the topic with others, even if it's with the best of intentions, you might be met with a surprising amount of resistance and resentment. So these are issues that all of us going down this road that's still somewhat unconventional will have to deal with in some way, shape, or form. So learning to deal with that negativity and, most importantly, learning how to not let it derail you from the road you're on is a big piece of ultimately being successful. So hopefully these stories will help you deal with that negativity in the same way that they help me. That's one reason we have many of these stories right there on the homepage of mymigrainемiracle.com to serve as a source of inspiration for you, but also for me as well, and to help remind me that this work is worth doing, that continuing to do everything I can to get this message out there is worth doing, and to not let the negativity stand in the way of doing that. So to Jan and to every single one of you who has or who will take the time to share your story or to give your feedback, I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And also know that by doing that, you're helping this mission and you're helping to bring this message to all of those who still need to receive it. So thank you so much. Just as a short bit of housekeeping before we get started, our next 30-day Jumpstart Challenge, which is designed to get you off and running with the Migraine Miracle Plan with a full head of steam, kicks off September 15th. So as part of the Jumpstart Challenge, everybody in the challenge moves through the Beast Slayer Training Academy together, and the Beast Slayer Training Academy now includes, as a bonus module, our newly created menstrual migraine protocol. And you can take part in the challenge either by becoming a member of Migraine Neverland. As one benefit of membership is that you can sign up for as many challenges that we conduct as you'd like, or you can sign up for it directly. And to learn more, just go to mymigrainemiracle.com and click on the resources link at the top, and you'll find information related to the Jumpstart and Migraine Neverland, as well as the other resources that we have to offer. Also, for the notes and transcripts of prior episodes of The Miracle Moment, go to mymigrainemiracle.com/moment. And just a final note before I get to the interview, the audio on this interview isn't perfect. However, I do have the full interview as a video with captions. If you want to listen or view it that way, just go to mymigrainemiracle.com/Jan. She really has a wonderful story, and she's a lovely person, so I think you'll find that listening to it is more than worth the effort. Okay, so without further delay, here's my interview with Jan Richards. So Jan, if you don't mind kind of giving us a little bit of your backstory, actually maybe just first of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, and where you're from.
Yeah, well, I live on the Sunshine Coast. I'm 59. I've had migraines all my life. And now I am kind of what I call accidentally retired, which is part of the migraine story. But I'm actually really quite happy about that, because now that I'm really healthy, it's wonderful being retired.
Right.
So I live on my own. I live in a beautiful beach resort. It's gorgeous, with my little puppy dog.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit then about your history with migraines, when they kind of began and how they evolved over the years.
Okay. I would say I had headaches as a kid. Before even I was a teenager, I recall having headaches then. When I got into my teens, they got a lot worse. When I was in my early 20s, I took beta blockers. Like in my 20s, the pill did actually control the hormonal side of it a little bit, but I was still getting headaches like at the end of the period cycle of the thing. So they actually put me on another hormone that sort of used to cover that 7-day period. And I literally took the pill and all these hormones for like 20 years without a break virtually, largely to control the migraines. And to some extent it did. I used to get really, really, really bad hangovers, but I think in retrospect they were probably just migraines. So, like, I've always had them. Honestly, I never actually spoke to a doctor about them until about 6 years ago. And I think it was just because I'd always had them. And I just thought, you have a headache, you take pills. About 6 years ago, I was really sick. I couldn't work particularly effectively, and
Right.
I went to the doctor, and it was actually the first time I'd ever talked to him about the migraines. And so I actually started a whole series of things at that time, because I realised I was pretty in a hole. And I started meditation. I started yoga. I saw a therapist and have been seeing therapists for years, and it's been wonderful. It's really the whole thing, the meditation and yoga therapy really helped a lot. But the other thing that the doctor did was put me on Immigrant, which was, I wish I had never taken one of those tablets. So 5 years after sort of starting all the meditation and everything, on one level I thought a bit better, but the rebound headaches were just unbearable. And I was sick all the time. I actually asked my GP if I was overtaking Migraine, and he checked my prescriptions and he said, "You're right on the border." I was taking, I would say, 4 or 5 easily a week. You only get 4 in a packet, and I was replacing the packet at least once to twice a week. And I was also taking codeine, mixed medications, a lot of Panadol, anything I could get my hands on. Really.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sleeping very well, so I was taking stuff to help me sleep. I was taking stuff for my sinuses because I thought my sinuses were always not right. I was just living on pills.
Right.
And it wasn't good. It wasn't good at all. And I actually gave up work because I couldn't concentrate. My vision was really bad. And one day I just quit. And even after that, kind of the stress levels went down a lot, which did help. But because of the rebound and everything, the headaches just kept rolling on, and on and on. And one day I actually called a friend and said, I can't come to coffee, I've got a migraine. She was really sick of it. And she said to me, why don't you go on this diet that my daughter's on? She used to get migraines and she doesn't get them anymore. And I thought, oh, yeah, right. I started looking. I just started looking. I had never thought about what I ate in terms of migraine, other than triggers. I knew there were lots of triggers. So I just started looking, and because I'm a person who's taken pills all her life and who thinks that you go to the doctor and the doctor fixes things, I wanted to find a medical reason to do this diet. And I think it took me about a day of Googling various different things. And I read a heap of stuff. I read a lot about diabetes and I read a lot about, keto for all sorts of things because that was the diet that her daughter was on. And eventually I found your book. And that was like the Sunday night. And the Monday morning I got up and I called every single bookstore on the Sunshine Coast and none of them had it. And I couldn't read. It was broken and I can't read an iPad because my eyes are really light sensitive. But eventually I called this bookstore 5 minutes up the road and they had it. So I went up and I bought your book and read it and followed it. And that day really changed my life, really completely.
Wow. That's pretty incredible that all the way across the world you're able to find it.
And really, I was thinking, I'm going to have to download this and read it, on my iPad, but I didn't want to because I really had a lot of trouble reading on the iPad. And although less so now, you're down the track. But yeah, that's how I got your book. And I'll actually tell you, when I was reading the book, I'd had migraines all my life, and there was so much I didn't know about them. There was so much in that book that it taught me. The whole thing with the balloons and all that sort of thing made sense. It made it easy to understand. I think I have like a long prodome, and that also had made it difficult, I think, to sort of know when to take things and all that sort of stuff, and when I might be just before the migraine and when it was, really coming in and all that sort of stuff. So I learned a lot from that. But when I read the chapter on grains, I literally went to the cupboard, pulled every grain I had out of the cupboard and took it to the neighbour. And when I read the chapter on drugs, I went into my bathroom and I literally flushed it down the toilet.
Wow. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. So you were prepared.
I had to do something. I really did. Yeah. And you made it sound like it'd work. I think if I'd read it and it had sort of been, it's a fairy tale, or if, people try to flog you stuff all the time.
Sure.
But I read it and I thought, no, this is real. This can work. And because also over the weekend I'd read a lot about the keto diet, and I sort of had thought that the whole thing sounded like a really good idea. So, I was prepared mentally. By the time I read the book, I was prepared to just ditch everything and do it. I did keep the Imigran, and I took 2 more Imigran from that day onwards, one about a week and a half in, when I had massive migraine. So I was just sort of teetering on the edge of ketosis. So I took one then. And I took one a couple of weeks later. But I remember thinking neither of them did any good. So that was it. I just didn't take any more.
Right.
And didn't take any more codeine drugs, didn't take. The only thing I kept was Panadol and aspirin. And these days, if I have to, I take that. But rebound really blew my brain. The thought that I'd been giving myself these migraines for so many years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that was kind of a big thing too. I just didn't want to go back into that territory at all.
Yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, and unfortunately, as you probably know, that's a really common story. People don't realize that that the medicines are fueling the problem, and it doesn't it doesn't seem like that should be the case, and you think you're doing all you can for them, and then realize unwittingly fueling the process.
Yeah, and the thing is, we don't think about what we eat. Really, you just eat. The health department kind of says eat your 5 whole grains a day, fruit and vegetables, and no fats, and that's what I was eating. In fact, I I was a carb queen. I lived on carbs. And I had no fat. And I was hungry every hour, because you are when you eat like that. My body wasn't happy. And I've been taking for my stomach for indigestion and stuff like that. I've been taking things like Nexium and Tagamet and stuff like that for like 15 years. And about 3 weeks into the plan, I thought, I don't think I need to take this anymore. And I just stopped taking it.
Wow. Yeah.
That was the first real difference for me. My stomach just was fine.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. So many times these digestive symptoms that have been, blamed on all sorts of things, or whether it's reflux or whatever, just go away quickly. I mean, same thing happened to me, and the same thing happened to a lot of folks now. And we don't realize what the true culprit is. So about how long ago was this that you found the book and kind of started on this journey? It
was the 20th of January last year.
And so, like prior to that point, what was kind of typical for you? Were you how often were you? Was that you mentioned with the Migraine like 4 to 5 times a week? Is that kind of where you were at?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So pretty close to daily headaches of some sort.
Yeah. If I went 4 or 5 days without a headache, it was like I was so excited.
Right.
But they were pretty much constant, and I had a lot of, sort of side symptoms that seem to have settled down a lot now. But one of them was my vision and light sensitivity, and because I was at a computer all day every day with my work, I think that was, a big thing for me. Really, I had got to the point where I couldn't work effectively, which wasn't good. Wasn't good at all.
Yeah. And for those in the U.S., Imigran is Imitrex or sumatriptan. And so you did you, going back to listening to your story, it sounded like things kind of went further downhill once you started on that in particular. Was that in retrospect the experience?
Yes. Absolutely like that. I remember the first time I took Imigran, and I was at my brother's wedding. And they'd had the morning wedding out in the sun, and I got this massive migraine. And we had like 5 or 6 hours, and then there was another function. And we were in Maui, and I went back into my hotel room, closed everything so it was pitch black, and I took my first ever Imigran. And I remember the guy said to me, if it doesn't work in 2 hours, take another one. And I took the 2, and I went out that night and I was fine. And that's probably the first and last time it ever worked, but it did work.
That's the double-edged sword, because it so often does work. And I remember the first time I took it, I thought like, this is miraculous, but for me too, that's kind of, if I look back and reflect, things went from very episodic to much more frequent over the ensuing years.
And I actually had close friends say to me once they sort of knew that I had got through a lot of that, in the last year, that they even could tell how much worse they were getting. People I worked with were, it was so obvious how much worse they were getting in those last 5 years.
Right. And so how are things currently this day for you, as far as headaches are?
Oh, good.
Pretty good.
Good. They are. I was trying to think when I actually had the last headache I would call migraine. And I would say that would be, it's got to be well over 6 months ago, which is just awesome.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah. So, I've worked on this from so many different angles. But for me, the icing on the cake really were the going off the drugs and the diet. Yeah. I think they really have 80% of the effect of the whole thing.
Yeah. Was the change in your diet initially difficult or challenging, or were you just so ready for anything that could work, you were kind of willing to do whatever it took?
Yeah, pretty much. I actually did Jenny Craig about 5 years ago. And really, I think when you do something like that, they just starve you and you actually go into ketosis by accident. So I knew how hard. I knew how hard that was going to be. And the first 3 weeks were hell. Absolutely. Like I said, I had a massive migraine in the middle. But I was so determined. And particularly because even really quite soon, there are little positive things. Your stomach's a little bit more, and I think that I was determined enough that I got through, I'd say the first 3 months, really. But also, excuse me, a lot of people I know talk about the energy burst when you get into ketosis. And I was in there. I stayed there for around 3 months, and I never got that. My energy levels stabilized, which was good.
Right.
And from that point of view, it was good, and so I felt better. But I didn't have that extra energy that I sort of thought I should have. And I actually I read a lot of books and a lot of stuff at that time. In fact, I've got a stack of books in front of me here. And I actually started to put some more carbs in, because I did read that some women need more carbs and stuff like that. And I thought, well, I'll give anything a go. But eventually I went to and said, look, I'm eating this diet. I'm not getting headaches anymore. And he already knew that. And he was kind of like stoked that he took down the name of your book and all that sort of stuff. But he did full blood tests. So that was 6 months into the diet. And the fantastic thing was everything in my blood test was brilliant. My glucose, my magnesium, absolutely everything. Yeah. The only things he was worried about were the cholesterol. And after sort of going through your stuff again, I convinced myself and probably him that was actually fine.
Right.
I think even though I didn't really get the full benefits from it to start with, I still got enough benefits from it that I was going to keep going.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Sure. And I think you make a good point too, that there are kind of different types of changes in energy that you might experience. Some people could feel a boost in energy, but for others it may just be, like you mentioned, a stabilization where you're off it's not no longer the ups and downs that you're used to, and really, like, that's a weapon against stability of any kind. Is a weapon against migraine. So now you're not keto anymore, correct?
So I don't think I need to hang around there in keto.
Right.
I think, I don't have the headaches.
Exactly.
And I think I've found, and it took a bit, but I think I found something that suits me. And I actually used my app yesterday and went through everything I ate yesterday, just so I knew when I was talking to you that I was, telling you the truth. And I saw you say I'm net about 50 grams a day.
Okay.
Of carbs. The app is net, and we work on net here. So I guess that's probably around 70 or 80. So that's about where I am on a daily basis. And I don't have to work hard to do that.
It's still pretty low. So yeah, that's good. And that's, that's kind of how I advise folks to do it with keto is it, it's an extra tool that can kind of give you a boost, but in most cases, it's not something that needs to be done on the long term. It can just kind of help you get to where you want to be more quickly. And, if we want to kind of adopt an ancestral approach to it, that's probably the way to do it, because, more than likely most of our wild ancestors were spending parts of the year in ketosis when, carbohydrate rich foods were not available. And then we're having other parts of the year where they weren't. So I like that as just a baseline model for overall health anyways. So that's great.
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of where I've stuck at, and I'm comfortable with that. I don't have to think about it too much. It just, it's just the way I eat now, which is really good.
Right. And are you fairly active physically, or?
For the past 5 years, when the migraines were at their worst, basically it's very difficult to exercise.
Yeah.
But I was always someone, like, I had got into the yoga. I've always swum, and I would try to swim, but it was never kind of something I could do regularly because I didn't feel good enough at the time. But now I am really getting back into it. In fact, last year was my healthy year. This is my fitness year. So I'm swimming 2 or 3 times a week. I do a yoga class a week, Pilates class a week. I walk the dog a couple of times a day. So I'm getting reasonably active now, which is good.
Yeah, that's excellent. And you mentioned too, but before when you went on the plan and you threw the medications away, and you went through a difficult stretch. Was there anything that you did to kind of help you through? I know we have people who we get this question a lot because folks, realize that where they need to go with things, but you kind of are obviously apprehensive about the thought of enduring without the medication. Did you have any particular strategies that you used, or did you just kind of grin and bear it?
Yeah, pretty much I just stuck it out.
Yeah.
If I did get something that I thought could accelerate into a fair headache, and I still will do this, I think, or if I have to go out or something and I've got sort of a bit of a headache, I do the coffee, 2 soluble aspirin and a hydrolyte, and sit down and try and do a meditation for 15 minutes or half an hour or something like that if I possibly can. That's kind of what I have done in the last year. If I've really thought that I had a headache that was necessary to take something forward.
Right. Do you feel like that that your headaches now are more receptive to that kind of approach than they would have been a year or two?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't do it very often, a couple of aspirin can actually kill it.
Yeah, that's another thing that's definitely a lot of people notice is that the headaches actually respond to something again. So that you can once you kind of get through that hump, you can actually use the medicines as a tool to get you to a better place. Yeah.
Although, as I said, I'm so aware of the whole rebound thing that if I can get away without taking anything, I will.
Yeah, I think that's probably that's always the lesson that I'm trying to convey is not that you don't have to take anything, you can't take anything ever again, but it's just like to appreciate, to understand what the consequences could be, so that you're making that as an informed decision as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if there's anybody out there who's listening and they're kind of where you were a few years ago, kind of at the worst, what would you say to them, or what would you have said to yourself back then?
I would have said throw the Immigrant in the bin, or down the toilet or something so that you can't take it.
Yeah.
Look, it was a long road for me. I was taking drugs from the time I was a kid, and I'm just talking about pain medication. I don't know, I think for me, a big part of it was anxiety fed into it because I had headaches so much. You're not performing well, you get anxious about that sort of thing. So I think that honestly, some sort of mindfulness thing that really helped me hugely. Try to limit your drugs, try to get, a little bit of exercise and eat what's good for your body. That's all I can say. I didn't do any of those things. And my body loves the food. It just absolutely loves it. I lost 6 kilos over 6 months and I was never, ever hungry. I'm never hungry. I think because hunger used to cause so many headaches, I still have a bit of a thing in my head that says, I've got to go and eat.
Right. Exactly.
Which is probably not necessary all the time now. But yeah, try the diet. I think it is a miracle. I hate to say it.
This is the challenge, right? This is the challenge, is trying to not oversell it, but at the same time try to convey just how transformative it can be.
Yeah, the first 3 weeks will be hard, depending upon how many carbs you're eating.
Right.
The first 3 weeks will be really hard. You have really bad headaches too.
Yeah.
You just will. But it's worth it.
Different people have, different ways they like to do things. And some folks are ready to just do it all at one time, whereas for others, it makes sense to tackle one thing at a time. And that kind of thing has to be individual. It also sounds like it's kind of changed the way you see food and that you've noticed probably in more ways than just headaches, kind of the way, how connected what we eat is to how we feel. That's another one of the benefits. And that's another thing that kind of migraineurs are predisposed to be able to learn that lesson easier, pay attention, because we do get this, powerful connection between food and the way we feel.
Absolutely. I don't know whether you have them over there, acai bowls with the acai berries. And I convinced myself, because it was full of antioxidants and stuff like that I could give one of these a go. They're just pure sugar, pretty much. And I reckon 10 to 15 minutes after I started to eat it, I had the shakes, and that night I had a migraine. It was incredible.
And I can think back too about how many times I ignored things like that, not thinking that the connection between the food and how I felt was that, that direct. And I would say, oh, that probably wasn't true. And then once I started paying more attention, and I realized, man, this is real, and it makes a difference. Do you have any parting words before we let you go? Anything else you wanted to share with the audience, or we cover it all?
I just said, give it a go. Well, literally quitting my job because I couldn't work, to feeling so good. I'm 59. I reckon that my 60s, I can be healthier than I was in my 50s and probably my 40s. It's that much of a change through your whole body, not just your head.
We see this over and over. You come in for the migraine relief, and then you stay because it transforms everything else in your life and the way you feel.
And people see me and they say, oh my God, you look so much healthier than you did a year ago. They can't believe the change. I had a friend up here last week, and she left. She was getting on the plane, and she said, keep doing what you're doing. You've really changed. Even my GP, you've turned your health around. It's incredible.
It's very tempting, I think, when you go through this and you experience all these great changes, and you want to just tell everybody, about it, and try to get them to change their ways. But just sort of existing and then showing, people do start to notice that you're looking healthier, and you're more vibrant, and then the ones who are interested will start to ask. So
I got a bit evangelical in the early days because I was just feeling so much better, and I had no great expectation of ever feeling any better. And I sort of started to really talk about it to people, but I actually stopped doing that unless people ask me about it, because people really object to it. They object to not just being told how to eat, but I actually had people walk away from me in a conversation once I say low carb. They're that negative about it. So I know.
Yeah. What's happened around nutrition is kind of bizarre, but it's a hot button thing. But yeah, I think for me, the best language to use has been a nutrient dense whole foods diet. I don't think anybody can argue with that as an approach, and that's all it really is. You're just improving the nutrient quality of the food you eat.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Jan, so much for joining me and for sharing your story and for doing all the hard work it's taken and suffering to get to where you've been. I think Gregory made a good point in the last podcast as well, in terms of like thinking about making this transition and sort of enduring the hard part to get to where you want to be, which is that in many ways migraineurs are already prepared for that because we've dealt with our more than our fair share of pain over the years. And so we kind of have developed the ability to endure those sorts of things.
Yeah, we're tough.
Yeah, exactly. We are tough. Like it or not, we have to become that way. All right, Jan. Well, thanks so much for joining me.